How do you apologize like you actually mean it? I want to look at how to make things right with people without making it about you. We've all heard bad apologies, right? They sound like, oh, I'm sorry if you were offended. I didn't mean it like that. Let's just move on, right? They're everywhere. And if we're honest, we've all delivered a few of them ourselves, right? But there's something that actually is damaging about these hollow apologies because a bad apology doesn't just fail to fix the harm, it actually deepens the harm. So it tells the other person, what I did isn't the problem, your reaction is the problem. And maybe the worst part about this is that, we think we're actually being accountable when really we're just trying to make ourselves feel better. So let's slow down for a second. Let's talk about the anatomy of a really good apology. What shifts it from more of like a performance to something that's more powerful and meaningful? So step one is going to be start with the hurt, not with the excuse, right? Most people open an apology by talking about what they meant to do. Oh, I was just trying to help. I didn't think it would upset you. But a real apology doesn't begin with intent. It actually begins with impact. So we need to start with the other person's pain. I can see that what I did really upset you. I realize I hurt you. It's a very subtle thing, but it's really important because when someone feels wronged, they don't need to be told what you meant to do. They need to know that you understand what happened to them. In fact, there are studies on forgiveness that show that people are far more likely to move forward when they feel truly seen and heard. So before you start explaining yourself, why don't we pause, right? And begin with, I want to acknowledge that I hurt you and that really matters to me. So step two is going to be about specifics. We need to be specific because vagueness just feels fake. We've all heard a vague apology, right? I'm sorry for whatever I did. I guess that's safe. I guess that's neutral, but it's also completely ineffective. Why? Because it signals that you really don't know what you did, right? You don't even want to admit what went wrong. You can't name it. So you need to be specific. You need to name the actual action. You need to name the moment, even if it stings and it kind of hurts you a little bit. So here's an example. I interrupted you in front of your team and I dismissed your idea without listening. That's pretty specific, right? Not only does that show that you're taking responsibility, but it also lets the other person know that they're not crazy for feeling what they feel. Yes, this did happen. Yes, you see it now. According to conflict resolution research, specificity is the key to rebuilding trust. So when someone can say exactly what they did wrong, it feels more real. Vague apologies often feel rehearsed. Specific ones feel earned. Step three, we need to drop the but. Here's where most apologies go to die. I'm sorry, but I was having a rough day. I'm sorry, but you were being dramatic. The word but erases everything you said before. Neurologically, it's kind of like a pivot cue. So the brain hears, wait, now comes the real explanation. And then suddenly you're not apologizing, you're justifying your actions. And a real apology stands on its own, without backup, without the disclaimers. So how about this instead? I'm sorry I shut down the conversation. I can see that made you feel dismissed. Then just stop. Let it land right there. Let the other person decide what comes next. You don't need to clear your name. You need to show up with your hands open. Step four is important. We cannot demand forgiveness. And this one's hard. We apologize and now we just want it to be over, right? We want to hear it's okay, right? We want that closure. But a sincere apology is not a transaction. It's not, I said sorry, so we're good now. It's a gesture. It's not a guarantee. When you apologize just to patch things up, what you're really doing is managing your own discomfort. So that's not really repair. That's like a pressure that, you need to fix this. And it puts the emotional labor back on the person who was hurt. Now they got to go work toward forgiving you. But a better approach would be, you don't have to forgive me right away. I just want you to know that I understand what I did and I really regret it. This kind of apology makes room. Sometimes that space is what allows trust to regrow. So to me, sorry is a verb. It is an action word, right? We need to now take action to not do it again. And words matter, but they're only the beginning. What really makes an apology whole is that next step, that action. So you can't always undo what happened, but you can take responsibility for what comes next. So to me, sorry is a commitment to not do it again. And that may sound like Is there anything I can do to fix this? Or maybe what's more realistic is, I'm working on this because I don't want it to happen again. Sometimes there's no quick fix. It's just, you need to do some inner work. Research in social psychology shows that amends are really the most crucial part of meaningful reconciliation, because without change, an apology is just words. It's just a performance. It's not a turning point in anything. So let's put this apology all together. What does a good apology sound like? I realize that what I said yesterday hurt you, and I want to acknowledge that because, I made a joke at your expense in front of others, and that was not okay. I'm not going to make excuses. I know I messed up, and I understand if you're still upset, but I just want you to know that I'm reflecting on it and I'll do better. If there's anything that I can do, to make it right, I'm open to doing that. And that's not groveling, that's growth. That's accountability. Apologizing well is not easy. It's vulnerable, and I struggle with it too. It requires humility, and it means not looking at why you did something, just the fact that you did it. And you also have to be okay with not being absolved. But a good apology does something powerful. It says, you matter to me, your experience is valid, and I am willing to change. So the next time you have to say I'm sorry, try saying it like you mean it. Not to move on, but to move forward.